Digital photography made simple.
Hello and welcome back to Digital 1-to-1. Today we're going to be discussing aspect ratio and how it affects our photos when we go to print our images. First, let's define what aspect ratio is. It's the relationship between the height and width of an image. It's that simple. Let's take a look at this sample to show you exactly what we mean. Now, how many of us have taken our images to be printed at a local photo retailer or an online service just to be frustrated when we get our prints back and seeing our images cropped arbitrarily by the printer? Now, this happens because our digital image file aspect ratio, remember height and width, is not the same aspect ratio, height and width, as the paper it's being printed on. Ken is going to show you some samples showing you this relationship.
Now we're going to simplify aspect ratio for you in a series of images that are both from a digital point and shoot and from an SLR 35mm. Now the digital point and shoot aspect ratio size is given a number called a 4:3 ratio. And on the other hand, the 35mm SLRs is given an aspect ratio number called a 3:2. Now our samples are going to show you how both apply to both a 4:6 print and an 8:10 print.
In order for our 4:3 aspect ratio sample image to become a 4:6 print, we will be sacrificing both the top and bottom portions of our image, where in our final print we lost the top of our subject's head, making it appear that we've composed our image incorrectly. However, if we want to keep our image composition to how we first photographed it, we'll need to reduce our 4:3 aspect ratio sample to fit the dimensions of our 4:6 print. And this is known as creating a full frame print. But notice how we now have white borders on either side of our sample image. But when we use our DSLR's sample image of a 4:3 aspect ratio, we find that when we produce a 4:6 print, we have a perfect fit. Now, if we want to create an 8:10 print from our 4:3 aspect ratio sample image, we find that our side edges of our image will be cropped when the image is enlarged to fit the full proportions of the 8:10 paper. But in order for our 4:3 aspect ratio sample to be printed on an 8:10 paper, we'll have to print it full frame, but this time our borders will be at the top and bottom edges of our final print. And as we demonstrate to make an 8:10 print from our 3:2 aspect ratio sample, we find that as we enlarge our image onto the proportions of the 8:10 paper, we begin to sacrifice the information at the sides of our image. And as you can see, we have now altered our composition, as well as eliminating one of our party guests. And like before, if we want to keep the image to how we composed it in the camera, we'll have to create a full frame print. This will also give us borders at the top and bottom of our image as well, and not sacrificing anyone out of our picture. But we can do all this after we've taken our shot in programs like iPhoto and Picasa. And by using the program's crop tool, we can make the adjustments ourselves prior to sending our images to an online print service or creating a CD to bring into our photo retailer. And using this tool allows us to compose our image exactly as we would like to see it.
Now there is another solution we can consider. There's a printing paper out there that exists that matches the direct proportion of our digital point and shoot camera's aspect ratio. It's called a 4XD paper. The 4XD paper is direct proportion to a 4:3 aspect ratio of our digital files. So look around, ask your photo retailer if they print with the 4XD paper.
Now that we have a better understanding of what aspect ratio is after we take the shot, now let us show you how to look at aspect ratio before you take the shot. Now, with a little thought, before we photograph our main subject or our scene, we want to make sure that we give ourselves some breathing room, so this way we don't have to worry about the aspect ratio. We don't get these images come back from our printer with the tops or the bottom or the sides cut off.
Now some cameras today actually allow us to change the aspect ratio right on our camera before we take our shot. We usually find this on our menu settings. Now if your camera does this and you know you're going to be making 4:6 prints, change it to the 3:2 aspect ratio, because that is the direct proportion to the 4:6 print. Because most point and shoots today are automatically set for the aspect ratio of 4:3. Now you've seen all that in our sample prints that we've showed you. Now on some of the point and shoot cameras today, it doesn't actually physically change the framing. What you may see are crop marks, and you can actually still see the full 4:3 aspect ratio frame, but you'll see little gray bars at the top and bottom of your frame, which shows you how to shoot your picture ahead of time. Like Santino said earlier, giving yourself a little breathing room so you already know what the aspect ratio is going to be. But we have a little chart to show you some of the direct proportions of camera size aspect ratio to the print. Let's take a look.
The following examples show us how a 4:3 aspect ratio image will enlarge onto our common print sizes. The left box shows us how our borders will appear as a full frame print. And the green portions of the right box shows us where our image will crop when we make a borderless print. Remember, at any point in this video, you can stop and pause the video so you can take a longer look at the print size you might want to make. These next examples show us how the 3:2 aspect ratio image will enlarge onto common print sizes. Another nice way to present our images is to print our image smaller on a larger paper, allowing us to play with the border sizes, giving our work a more artistic feel. And before framing, add your name and the title of your image.
Congratulate yourself now that you have a better understanding of how aspect ratio works and knowing how to give yourself a little room within your image to fit any size aspect ratio makes you a better photographer and a digital 1-to-1 photographer.
So feel confident and don't feel frustrated the next time you view your prints coming back from your photo finisher. Thanks for watching us, and for the best tips on digital photography, look to us here on Digital 1-to-1.